Max Olson, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. Max today at 3:30. Grayson Grunhafer around the corner. And again, Brigham Young's Kalani Sitake in about 40 minutes. Max, what are your thoughts about the transfer portal window? Was May 1 through May 15th. They moved it up to April 15th to April 30th, and they did it like just recently. How does that benefit some and maybe hurt others who are still practicing into next Saturday with their spring games?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They made that change back in October, and I think that one just kind of slipped through the cracks during the season. And there wasn't really maybe a lot of reasoning given for why they made that switch. I think it's interesting how that kind of collides with spring game schedules. I mean, I looked at this last night, and there's a few teams like Oregon that don't play their spring game till April 29th. So I imagine that they're probably going to be losing some players off their roster before they even play that game. And so, but at the same time, honestly, coaches probably kind of like it. They probably liked it. Maybe let's make that window even smaller for these players to leave. But I think it will lead to some players making decisions probably even before their spring games about whether they're ready to move on. And it's going to be interesting to see just how much movement happens in this 2-week period. Since the window closed in mid-January, we've really only seen like 100 players go in the portal as grad transfers over the past 3 months. So there's a lot of underclassmen that just haven't been able to make a move yet and are certainly have a chance to act on those thoughts right now.
Max, reading your column today, I kind of thought it was interesting that both not Gus Malzahn, he's at UCF now, Hugh Freeze and Billy Napier kind of answered the question about going after a quarterback in the portal the same way, and that, like, yeah, we'd like to, but like they're trying to set reasonable expectations on it. But do you get the feeling that they are saying, like, we wish that there were more people in there for us because they probably have more questions than answers as they wrap up spring practice?
Yeah, I think if you're in this spot at the end of spring and you're saying we really hope somebody can come in and be our QB1 and be consistent and a difference maker and all that stuff over the guys we've got, that's a tough spot to be in because you kind of don't know who's going to pop up here. What veteran quarterbacks could become available over these next 2 weeks. And honestly, guys, when you're in that kind of spot, like, it's no wonder these schools tamper because you kind of want to guarantee that you can go get somebody that can really help you. And so it's going to be very interesting to see, Florida coming out of their spring game last night. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of excitement about what they have with Graham Mertz and Jack Miller. And, I think Auburn's got two pretty talented quarterbacks in Robbie Ashford and TJ Finley, who've both started games. But I think the concern for Hugh Freeze is, can either of those guys be a consistent passer and can, throw your way to a game in the SEC? And so, if they can find somebody a little bit better, I'm sure those two schools are going to be fighting over them.
Max, a lot of other good spring games going on this weekend. I know that Texas is coming up, and obviously not a quarterback battle there with Quinn Ewers being the guy. But man, there just seems to be a lot of positivity flowing out of Austin, and it's not the typical, off-season banging of the drum and false hope or anything like that. I mean, there's some real meat on the bone, it seems like, for this Texas team, even having to replace guys like Bijan Robinson. What are your thoughts on Sark and company as they get ready for next season?
Yeah, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of oohs and ahs when Arch Manning's out there throwing passes, even though people, I think, are generally optimistic that Quinn Ewers can take a big step here in his second year as the starter. I think the thing with Texas that, and look, it feels like a broken record. We're saying this over again. We said this during Charlie Strong's tenure and definitely during Tom Herman's tenure. But like this recruiting class they just signed, like they definitely brought in some early enrollees from that group that are like going to start right away. Like Anthony Hill and Jonte Cook and some of these players they've picked up. I think the young talent reload is definitely underway there. And yeah, you're going to have to stack a few more classes to actually be competitive in the SEC. But I think that there's no excuses for Texas to get worse this year, even without Bijan and Roschon and a couple NFL players moving on. Like I think certainly they've got the firepower offensively to be pretty prolific this year, and they need to take a big step forward in year 3 under Sark.
Max, there's 14 teams, so it's not easy just off the top of the head to think about it. But which ones among the 14, a couple of quarterback battles you think might be the most interesting? I know Manning, Ewers, although I think we all believe that Ewers will be named that starter and how that works out. But is there one or two others? Or are there one or two others that come to mind?
Among which 14?
Among the Big 12 teams. The Big 12 or yeah.
Yeah, among the Big 12 teams. Yeah. I think in terms of quarterback battles, it seems like some of these are not going to be that surprising. Like, I think Alan Bowman's probably going to be the guy at Oklahoma State. They've got some other players with starting experience, and obviously we haven't seen him play in a few years. And so, like, we'll see on that one. But I think that just his experience, I think you feel pretty good about what he can bring to the table there after the time he put in at Michigan and certainly starting at Texas Tech. I think Iowa State feels good about Hunter Deckers. They've got a very talented true freshman in J.J. Cole, but I think they feel pretty good that Hunter Deckers is going to improve quite a bit off of the struggles of last season. And gosh, I don't know, guys. I think it's on. Is there one I'm blanking on here? Like, I think Cincinnati's an interesting one.
Yep,
They've brought in a bunch of quarterbacks. I think it was interesting that obviously they had a coaching staff change, and so you've got fresh eyes on that situation. But between Evan Prater and Ben Bryant, like, they had veteran guys coming back, and they still chose to take Emory Jones from Arizona State, who didn't do too much with the Sun Devils and didn't look that great in his 1 year as a starter at Florida. So that competition and kind of what the future is there, you certainly wonder, who emerges there and who leads.
Yeah, I think that, Oklahoma State might be interesting, but the quarterback is Michigan, and I forget his name every time.
Alan Bowman.
Alan Bowman has got skins on the wall. Even though the young freshman at Tech played well last year, we know that Shuck finished so strong. Shapin ahead of Sawyer Robertson, and should
is that be like what's like the deal in there in Waco? Is that like kind of 50-50 or a pretty good edge for Shapin?
I think it's more 50-50 than Shapin having an edge. I think it's
okay.
Closer. I'd still go Shapin starts the year, but I wouldn't rule out that if he doesn't perform up the task, that they're not throwing Robertson in there pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I think that because of last year when they made the decision and they were pretty much, it was Shapin and that was it. No matter the clamoring for anyone else, I think Craig's right. Although Dave Aranda said earlier that even though Sawyer Robertson gets a lot of attention, his personality and his energy like a young puppy, that he feels like Shapin has taken on everything he needed to, including his passing ability, and it's a lot to do with Matt Powledge. In practice, they go, make a call, and it's making him sharper under the gun because he's always been a good practice player, but perhaps not a practice player that carried it over to a game.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I think you've got some younger quarterbacks in this. Obviously, this time last year, none of us were talking about Jalen Daniels, right? Like, you can
absolutely
these guys, if you put them in the right situation, and the right talent around them, and a great OC and all that, like, you can see some big leaps, and I think we'll see some in the Big 12 this year. I think Garrett Green showed some flashes for West Virginia late in the year. Like I said, I think Deckers has got the potential if he can really kind of put it all together. And you mentioned the Texas Tech one. I think it's interesting. They love Tyler Shuck when he's healthy. I think they really feel like he's a pretty darn good one, and I think he even won all of his starts last season when he was right. But man, you saw at times in Big 12 play last year the long-term potential and upside with Baron Morton is super exciting.
Max, who do you think, now that we have the NFL draft here in a couple weeks, is the most irreplaceable player that's left the Big 12?
Well, there's not another Deuce Vaughn. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that, in terms of heart and soul of your team and all that, like, I think Kansas State's going to be fine at running back. They brought in a transfer from Florida State. They've got some good young backups, so I think can step up there. But just in terms of, like, how much Deuce Vaughn scares you when you play against them, I think that one is pretty tough to replace, along with his teammate Felix Anadike-Uzomah. So I think, the defending champs figuring out a way to get other guys to step up and not just like be like good starters, but like captains and leaders and stuff. I think that challenge is going to be interesting for K-State.
So tell me about the story you did on the lineman. Who was the high school player, a receiver, I think it is, from Idaho? Yeah. Is that correct? Gatlin Bear?
Gatlin Bear, that's right. Yeah, I wrote about him this week on The Athletic. This is a kid from Burley, Idaho, middle of nowhere, Idaho. who comes from a track family and is a guy who's on the rise in the recruiting rankings this spring. He went down to Texas Relays a couple weeks ago and ran a 10.18 in the 100-meter as a high school junior. He's an absolute freak and a guy that I think 24/7's even put him up into like their top 50 for this 24 class. Super interesting kid who is looking at some of the Texas schools are in the mix on him now. Looking at Nebraska, Michigan, Oregon, but also a kid who, in addition to like that really interesting talent, he plans to take an LDS mission for 2 years and won't play college football until 2026. And so that's made for an interesting recruitment for a kid from the middle of nowhere, Idaho, who is trying to figure out the right place to go and is obviously, now that his name is blown up more, getting a lot of interesting NIL offers.
That's amazing. Yeah. So 2026 would be the first year he would play college ball because of his 2 years on the trip, his mission?
Yeah. He wants to enroll at a college in the spring of 26.
Okay.
Max, what were your thoughts on Lincoln Riley's acquisition of Cliff Kingsbury, bringing him into the fold at USC?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you've seen Nick Saban and a lot of these coaches, Georgia and other coaches do it. When you can go get the buyout guy and basically pay him nothing to really help you out because his last job's paid for him. I think it's an easy win. And gosh, for Cliff Kingsbury to team up with Lincoln Riley. First of all, I'm sure Mike Leach would have loved to see that. I think that's amazing. To bring him in as a senior offensive analyst. It's kind of scary for everybody else in that league. I mean, you already got the Heisman winner coming back. They've, continued to add great pieces on offense. But to just have Cliff throwing play suggestions out there and trying to help further the development of maybe the best player in college football, just such a no-brainer move for Lincoln and for Cliff and kind of dipping his toe back into the college game.
Max, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always, making room for us, and we always make room for you, Max Olson, columnist, college football writer, senior writer for theathletic.com. I saw this from Adam Rittenberg